What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? How are you guys doing? One of the questions that I get asked on this channel is, what gear did you use to film this? And so today I'm gonna go over the answer to that as kind of my continuation to my little YouTube series that I've been doing. So I'll go over all of the gear that I typically use to make these videos. And that's, you know, as of late 2020. Obviously that's gonna change in the future. I'm definitely looking to upgrade some stuff, but we'll talk about that as well. But I do wanna make it very clear that you can make a very compelling triathlon video for YouTube or wherever using nothing but your smartphone. And I'll leave a link to a video that Eric Lagerstrom did recently with nothing but his iPhone. So when I start rattling off all of this camera gear, all of the equipment that I use, please don't feel like you need any of this specific gear to be able to start doing something cool on YouTube. Okay, let's actually start with this exact office setup. In this shot, I'm using my main camera, which is the Sony a7 III. Attached to it is a Zeiss 55mm lens. And for audio, I'm using a boom microphone. The microphone itself is called an Octava microphone. The microphone plugs into a Zoom H6 field recorder, which is nice. You can kind of take these out in the field if you want to. But the one problem with that is that I do have an extra step in which I have to sync the audio that is recorded on this device to the video, which is recorded on the camera itself. So one thing I would suggest for any of you guys that are trying to get into making videos is to avoid any of these extra steps in your workflow. Typically you'll want to kind of turn things over pretty fast with YouTube. I do own one other microphone. It's called the Rode Video Mic Pro. And I use it as a backup microphone, and I also take it out on the road with me just because it kind of fits nicely on the hot shoe of the camera itself. Which is a real nice microphone itself, and I did use it for kind of the first 2 years of making these videos. Now I have a number of different lenses that I use with that a7 III camera, and I love using a Sigma 35 1.4mm lens. You'll probably see it in a lot of the videos that I make, but I also have a Canon 100mm macro lens, and I actually bought this for my wife a number of years ago, but I've adapted it to this camera body, and so it is manual focus, but it does seem to work well when you kind of want those kind of fine detailed shots, you know, typically when I'm doing kind of product shots. So to get those really stable, smooth shots, I have something called a gimbal. And the gimbal that I actually have is called the DJI Ronin S. But I will say that DJI just now released a new update to this device, and now it's called the DJI RS, and they also have a smaller one called the DJI RSC. But I do love the way that these gimbals make your footage look ultra smooth, and it really just kind of gives it a much more professional feel. But one thing I dislike about having these gimbals is just how big and cumbersome they are, and kind of how much time they take to set up. But another way and a cheaper way to kind of stabilize your footage is just to lock it off and use a good tripod. I use the Manfrotto Be-Free tripod. I think it's nice. It kind of packs down nice and tight so you can use it to travel with. I didn't grab the super expensive carbon version, but I do think that it's a nice utility to use when filming. And I really do prefer the footage that I get from this larger setup, you know, with the gimbal or the tripod, using the full frame mirrorless camera that I have here. But I also have a few GoPros. And for a lot of the stuff that I'm making, you know, swimming, biking, and running, GoPros are just all around way more practical. And they seem to be able to kind of take a serious beating. And I would say it's kind of fun to use them in a variety of different shots and angles. You can put them at the bottom of a pool, or you can strap them to the back of a bike, or you can kind of pour coffee over them. All kinds of weird stuff that you can do with things like a GoPro. Now I have 4 GoPros that I've kind of collected over the past 6 years or so. I have the GoPro Hero 4, I have the GoPro Hero 6 and the 7, and then recently I just got that GoPro Hero 9. And they're all great, and they've all held up well, and they're all still functioning cameras. And a little over 2 years ago, I purchased a small drone. This is what they call the DJI Mavic Air. They've actually upgraded this one as well. Now they have a DJI Mavic Air 2, probably a lot better than this one. But I would say that I have really enjoyed having a drone. I love the shots that it gives me. Definitely has not held up as well as some of the GoPros. You can see if you look closely at this, that I've had to kind of super glue it back together a couple of times. But I love the aerial photos, I love the videos, and I love the fact that it kind of allows me to kind of set up the scene for people and just show people where it is that I'm working out. Now, the last thing that I'll go over, and I would say it probably should have been the first thing that I went over, is lighting. And I would say just, quick tip here, if you are filming something and you kind of get back to the computer and you just really don't like the overall look of it, I would say that like 9 times out of 10, it's probably because of the lighting. So I have a few little lights that I use in the background of these videos. I have a couple small lights like this one. This one is from Aperture. It's called their F7. I'd say it looks okay, it works okay, but I also have a brand new tube light from the company Luminate. And I just, that was like a Kickstarter campaign, kind of an impulse purchase. But that's the light that you kind of see behind me on the desk here. And the main light that I use to kind of light this particular setup kind of has this 45-degree angle. Some people would call it like a key light. Is this cheap light panel from Fozatan. It looks kind of like this. I don't know if you guys can see that pretty well. But I'd say it's great because it's easy to move around. And it's light and it doesn't take up a ton of space, but it's not great. It's not super nice. I probably not something that I would buy again, but it's definitely something that I'll continue to use going forward. And I'll probably use it kind of as like a fill light or something, because I do think that I probably want to invest in a larger key light, something like that. Some sort of small investment in lighting just to kind of make these videos look a little bit better. So lastly, to editing, and to edit these videos, I use a program called Premiere Pro. It's a program made by Adobe. I think it's a great tool, but I do think that there might be some easier tools to use. Apple makes a program called iMovie that I think is good. They also make a slightly more professional version, which they call Final Cut Pro. And I just tend to think that the workflow on either of those platforms is significantly faster than going with something like Premiere Pro. But I'm kind of used to Premiere Pro, and so I'm having a hard time changing that up. And that's pretty much it for the videos that I've been making. I'll try to do, one of these videos per year because I will upgrade equipment, and again, I mentioned that I'll probably be upgrading my lighting. But hopefully that gives you some exact details about the tools that I'm using when I'm making these videos. And I do think it's worth repeating. You do not need any of this gear to make great videos. All you need to make great videos is a good story that you want to tell, and potentially, something small like a phone or something like that to start filming stuff. And I still have a lot to learn about how best to use all of this stuff, including, simple stuff like GoPros or iPhones, for me personally to make better videos. But if you are curious, now you know, and just for fun, I will leave a link to the video that I made 2 years ago talking about this exact same topic. But spoiler, it's a lot of the same stuff that I'm still using today. And I'll also leave a link to all the kind of YouTube playlist stuff as well. And as always, I really do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch all of these videos, and we will see you guys on the next one.